Hello, fellow watercolorists. Welcome to July 7th's prompt, which is melt. I have a quick sketch. We're not going to use a reference photo for this because we're going to, something that's so common that I think everybody out there can probably visualize this. We are going to paint a popsicle that's melting for melt. And so this is a really simple drawing. I just wanted to do a quick sample so that you could see where we were going. Yours may or may not look exactly like this when we're done, but it's really just a couple of rectangles with some drips, which are also just elongated rectangles. So this is going to be super easy to put on our paper. One of the things that you can do to help make sure that your drawing is centered on your paper is measure the width. So my paper is just it's a little over 5 inches. So if I draw a line down my paper that is just a hair over 2.5 inches from the edge, I'm going to be at the center point. And I'm going to do this so softly because I'm going to erase it, and I know I need to erase it. And the next thing, so now the next thing is, if you want to get I want my popsicle to be taking up about this much room, and I want it to be about this high. So I'm going to kind of give those indications here. Now, if we want to keep them even, you can do this if you want to. You don't have to. You can just go ahead and draw it in. Actually, let's do that. Let's just draw it in because we're not going to be perfectionists about this. Now, if you want it to be about the same width, you just kind of tap your pencil between the dot, the line, the dot, the line, the line. There you go. And then just tap back. And this just kind of helps you get your pencil in about the right spot. And then the same thing up here. We're just going to kind of go like this. All right. Now, that is going to be the base for, it's a little wide, but that's okay. Actually, so yeah, I'm going to leave it that way. All right, so I'm going to come down like this. I'm just going to draw my rectangle to start with. I'm going to leave my top off. Now, for my top, I'm just going to kind of round it like this because this is a partially melted popsicle already. For my popsicle stick, I'm going to come across this way. I find it easier to do the bottom line first, and then I'm going to tilt my page and just come in and go like this and this. There we go. We can round those corners if we want. There. Okay. I don't need it to be perfect because this is a painting. It doesn't need to be perfect. Not a photo. I have to remind myself that often, but it's good for me to throw out some reminders for you as you are working on things. Doesn't need to be perfect. It's art. It is an expression of an idea. Okay, so I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser to pull up those extras. Now, I want to make my popsicle very drippy looking because it's very melty. So for the top part, I'm going to just kind of come in and I'm going to pull down a drip. I'm going to do like 3 of these, and they get a little wider at the bottom, and drips can kind of do that. This one's a little smaller, and this one comes way down. Okay, and now I'm going to kind of, my popsicle is melting in a way there. This is kind of melting off the top here, right? So I'm going to take out those extra lines. And actually I'm just going to lighten everything so that when I paint it, those lines are not too distinct. Okay, and now we're going to you can draw them in ahead of time, or you don't. This is going to be up to you. Draw them in ahead or decide to be a little free-flowing about it and do it later. I do want to do the corners here. So we're going to bring this corner down because the whole popsicle is just melty. This corner is actually going to have a drip on it. Oops. Here. Didn't mean to do that. I'll reshape that a little bit. And there we go. It's very drippy looking. Okay. I'm being a little picky about this. Okay. And here's the thing, when you're really picky, then you start to mar up your paper, so I should stop being picky. Okay, and then I want to have some puddles here to show that this popsicle has been dripping for a little while. So we're just going to kind of make a couple of drippy puddles. This puddle, I'm going to have an active drip coming down right here. And then I'm going to have another puddle here. That's too wide, okay, because you're looking at it from the side. Let me try again here. Okay, and it has just dripped, so you can see the drip that's splooshing down. Okay. It's maybe too wide. Okay, here we're gonna go. There we go. Okay, this is a little like, you know, illustrate-y, cartoony, and that's okay. There. All right, now just lighten everything up. You're gonna need to pick the flavor of your popsicle. Mine is going to be something red, like strawberry or cherry or watermelon. I love all of those. Now when I mix my paint colors up for that, I'm gonna use 2 shades of that color because it'll just keep the whole thing more interesting. And so I recommend you do the same. Go ahead and pick out, if you're gonna do lime, then pick out a green and a yellow. And then we're gonna kind of mix those 2 colors as we paint them down. If you are doing strawberry like I am, I'm gonna use like a kind of a reddish color and a pink. If you were doing grape, you could use grape and violet or grape and blue. It just really depends on what your preference is. But the nice thing about this painting is it is just going to be really fun and bright and very summery. So you just pick whatever colors you like, and then that's your flavor. All right, let's go ahead and get our paints hydrated. And I'm going to start making my puddle. I'm not going to start right with my big brush. I'm going to use my size 6, or, you know, like a 6 or an 8. That's what you're going to want. And I'm going to go ahead and get my brush nice and wet. And I'm going to pull out, since I'm going with a red flavor, I'm going to pull out this carmine red. Now, carmine red has a lot of blue to it, so that's going to mix really well with a pink. This is a cooler red versus a red that has a lot of yellow or orangey undertones. I just want a nice big pile to work with. So I'm pulling out quite a bit of paint. And I'm going to pull in some more water. There we go. And some more water. Some more paint. There. Okay. We've got a nice big pile. All right, and now I'm going to grab my pink, which is my sort of complement, these will be called, I never say this right, so please forgive my pronunciation, analogous colors. I could spell it for you, but I can't say it. Anyway, they're right next to each other on the color wheel. So that's what we want for this popsicle, is 2 colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel, which these guys would be. So okay, I'm gonna start with my pink. I'm gonna go around my drips. I'm just gonna start with the base of the popsicle, and I'm gonna kind of pull in both my red and my pink as I paint. And we're just filling in around the drips. And the reason that we're not doing the drips is because we want them to be a little distinguished from the rest of the popsicle, right? Okay, and this kind of dips down. I'm gonna get a little more pink. The colors are pretty similar, so you're not seeing a huge difference. I could add a brighter red if I wanted to. Maybe I will. Let's add a little bit of this permanent red because it's a little more reddish. There we go. add that second color in there is for no other reason than it just is going to give it, like I said, a bit more interest instead of just doing a straight color. Okay, this is the only drip that I'm going to paint right now because it actually comes right off of this edge. Now, I'm going to go ahead and throw down some color here in these puddles. Just kind of mix in a little bit of both. You can kind of tip some of your one color into the other. We can do that up here too. Like I'm going to tip in some of the red into that pink. And I want it to be kind of, I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to be kind of textury and because it's all melty and sticky and messy, right? Got kind of this drop here, and then this. Put a little bit of the red in there. This one I'm going to start out with the red and add some of the pink in. You could paint this in just one color if you want to. If you don't feel like messing with having to dip between two different colors, if you feel like you're going to have a harder time filling in the shape by doing it that way, then don't. You know, this is one of those things you definitely don't have to do. Do it this way. Like I said, I was just trying to give it a little bit more interest. Okay, so now my main part of my popsicle is done. The reason I kept this separate is because now we're going to paint in this part, this drippy part, and I wanted it to be standing out a little bit more. Same thing with my little drip that's falling here. So I'm going to grab this darker red, and I'm going to start the part when a popsicle melts. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but the frozen part tends to be a little like crystally, so a little lighter in color, and then the melty part tends to be a little bit darker in color. I should mention one other thing that we're going to do to make this look really drippy is we're going to add some white highlights at the end. So you are going to want to use like a white gel pen, Posca pen. You can use some, I like this white acrylic ink sometimes that I'll add on top. So something that's going to be opaque. So we are going to add some more definition to those drips a little later too. Okay, I'm going to just pull in my red. I want it to be darker. So I'm going to grab, actually I'm going to mix together my permanent red and my carmine red. And really get it nice and dark. There we go. Because oftentimes it just is. Like the melty part tends to be a little, I'm going to kind of come down and just fill this in. This is kind of ripping off. And I want all of these edges to be fairly rounded. This is kind of a roundy, drippy, sticky mess. You can move to a smaller brush if you want to. You think that would be helpful for you? Okay, I'm going to do the same thing with this one. It's going to be kind of like... Okay. All right, there we go. Now, here's a really fun thing we're going to do before we paint this stick. We're going to grab, because when it's a drippy, drippy mess, let's splatter. This is a perfect opportunity for doing lots of splatters. I will recommend when you do your splattering to watch out around you because it is messy. And sometimes I do some bigger. And then what I do like to do, if I feel like they're getting a little too, I can kind of go in and tap. I like my splatters to be a little, I don't want to say softer, but a little. This is going to add some texture to the top of your popsicle because wherever that water splatters, you see how it creates this kind of drippy, textury mess. I like that. All right, so I'm going to grab a little more of the just pink. Okay, so here, let's go through. If you've never made splatters before, you want to use the brush you use and the amount of water to paint ratio you use is all going to change what your splatter looks like. So I'm going to do this with a fairly large brush. I'm going to add a lot of water. My brush is really watered, lots of water. I'm going to pull in a decent amount of paint. So now you can see it's just really swollen and loaded up. All I'm going to do is tap, tap, tap. I'm going to do that just kind of everywhere. Now, something you can do if you want to like really disperse it and really have fun with it is you can take your spray bottle and do a little like spritz. You see how it runs? And I don't do that everywhere. And this gets a little much for me sometimes. So I'll go in and just, like I said, kind of dot things up a little here and there. I'll leave some stronger, but like on the top of my object, a lot of times I'll pull some things back. If it's on like this stick, I'll kind of rub that out. Yeah, and you just have fun with it. And if you want to, and you can also, here's another thing you can do when you're splattering. I'm going to take my red color this time. And you can brush it out too, to give a really nice background. I do this a lot. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of, I'm going to pull some things back. Okay. If you splatter into a wet background, it kind of explodes out. That can be fun. All sorts of things you can do with splattering and spraying to give yourself some texture and some fun. I'm going to leave it at this because I think this is kind of wild, but that's okay. This is like a fun summary picture. You can see because my top layer wasn't all the way dry when I started, wherever my water splattered, it like created a little water bloom in the top of here. Just gives me extra texture. I'm good with that. And this is one of those like really just fun play with it paintings. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is work on this stick. And so I'm going to choose a neutral brown. So I'm going to use my raw sienna to paint my popsicle stick. If you don't have a raw sienna and you need to create a kind of goldeny color, maybe all you have in your palette is a really bright yellow. I'm going to show you how I can do that. Right, we've got this really bright yellow and we need to tone it down. So the way that we tone down colors is to look on the color wheel, whatever is across the color wheel. I need some more water, sorry guys. There we go. So we've got our yellow. So we're going to take our color wheel and we're going to look. This yellow kind of falls in between these two. So it's going to be like a blue violet or violet. So I'm going to use my blue violet. I'm going to touch just a teeny amount, like the smallest amount of blue violet onto my brush. Yep. And then just mix it in. And you see how, and you can kind of pull, see how I'm pulling to the side? There you go. And I'm starting to neutralize. I need a little more. Gotta be careful because you can go too much pretty easily. There we go. Do you see how it's starting to neutralize that color? Now this is a little warmer. Let's say like I want to warm it up a little. Then I can add a little bit of like maybe a red orange. There. And now I've managed to mix a pretty good popsicle stick color without having it pre-mixed. Right? So as long as you have a good set of primaries. So, all right. Just gonna use this and paint in my stick. The stick is not the star of the show here. And this is like a really messy, gloopy painting, but it's supposed to be. Okay, we're gonna give our popsicle stick a teeny bit of shadow later, but not right now. Right now we're just gonna leave it. And mine, when I was doing my splashing, got a little crazy, but I was demonstrating. If your splashing didn't get so quite crazy, that's good. If you were having fun with it and yours is crazy, that's good too. Okay, so in order to give these drips a bit more dimension, we are going to shadow, we're going to imagine that the sun is coming this way. In a lot of our paintings we've done the light coming from, I just tend to choose upper left, I think. But for this time, let's go upper right corner. this is maybe, there we go. So that's where our sun is coming in. So our drips are going to be lighter here. They're going to be darker underneath and along this edge. Because the sun is coming this way, this is in shadow, and this is in highlight. We're going to need a small brush or smaller brush. I'm going to choose my size 4. You could use a size 3 would be good for this. I'm going to use my 4. Somewhere in that neighborhood. And I'm going to mix up a darker color of this carmine red, but I want to add a little more shadowing to it. And so I'm going to add a touch of purple. Teeny bit. And that's just going to give me a really nice deep red color. Look at that, that's so pretty. Okay, purple. I'm going to mix up enough so that I have to keep mixing. There we go. Okay. And we're going to be a little accentuate, you know, like I said, this is kind of a fun illustrative style picture. So we're just going to have fun with it. We're not going to worry about whether or not it's realistically accurate. All right, get my brush cleared. Okay, there we go. And so I'm just going to come in, and on this side, I'm just kind of, because we want to make it look like it's sort of pillowing out, right? So I'm going to come like this, and I'm going to come along there. Now what I want to do is sort of, and now I've rinsed my brush, I've tapped it off so there's not too much water in it, and I'm going to, not get my head in the way, sorry. I'm going to just touch the inside edge to soften it. Do you see how that softens it? Go too far, you just, yep. And I'm going to bring it around. I want to bring it around just slightly, so like not a lot, but like, and I might actually turn my paper a little this way. We're going to kind of come like this just a little bit. Now this is on the sun side, but that drip kind of, it's, you know, kind of comes around like this. So we're hitting just a teeny bit of shadow here, much more shadow here, and then we're going to go in and add some highlights back in there later. Okay, so now I'm coming to this underside. It's going to be a little deeper. And a little wider as it comes down the left side. So that's how our sun works, our shadows. And then we're going to go ahead and rinse the brush, get some water, just enough, not too much, and blend that out to soften it. And then pull up just the teeniest, lightest amount on the other side of your drip. I need maybe a little more here just because this side of my drip is a little undefined. There we go. Okay, so now we get back up here. Again, we're going to do a wider amount, wider. Paint on my brush. Rinse and soften. Okay, just going to soften all the way. Now let's go ahead and do the thinnest little bit right here. See how it just gives it that great dimension. Now I'm going to make it wider again there. Don't be afraid to turn your paper around in order to make it work for you. Okay, I'm just going to kind of stop there. All right, do you see how there's so much more dimension now? Okay, we're going to do the same thing over here. This one is going to this one's kind of flopping this way. Soften that. And I'm going to actually I'm going to add a little bit of a circle here. When something drips, it ripples, right? So we're going to make kind of a ripple. Okay, now for these guys, this is going to be the popsicle color, and we're going to do kind of a similar thing where we're going to add a little bit of shadowing. Let's actually, before we move away from this color, let's just add a little shadowing all the way there. go. And then we're just going to let it kind of hit it with that water to soften it out. Okay. Let's work on the pink. So now for that, I'm going to start with my pink color here, nice and dark, and I'm going to add same purple, just a teeniest touch though, right, so that I maintain the pink tone versus the red tone. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to just darken this up. I made one great big swoop because I'm really confident with my brush. If you're not feeling as confident with your brush, you don't need to do that. Take your time. All right, we're just going to kind of add some water to soften this up just like before. Okay, and I'm going to add a little bit of just like a little sticky puddle, same thing. We're going to add just a little bit of outlining and shadowing on it, just to give it a nice shape, but also a little definition. This drip definitely needs a nice dark spot to it here. And then we're going to do the same thing where we pull up the teeniest little line there. I'm going to actually make this side a little bigger and then smooth it out because my original drip was not very smooth. All right, and now I'm going to pull some water into my brush and just soften this. There we go. Okay, so we've got a drippy popsicle mess. I am going to add a little bit of shading, just the teeniest amount underneath of here for the pink, because that would be cast in shadow, right? Not much, but just a teeny, like the teeniest amount. I'm going to kind of accentuate what we did before, and I'm just doing it on the, I don't know if you were in, like if you ever did bubble letters, you kind of learned about how to, as a kid, I love to write in bubble letters, and this was what made it look effective, I think, was just adding that bit of shading to your bubble letter to give it dimension. That's kind of what we're doing here. I'm just going to that one just needs a little more. There. Okay. I am pretty dang happy with that. Now my popsicle stick needs a little bit of shadowing, and so I have this color here, right? And I'm going to add a teeny bit more purple, because purple and this raw sienna make a beautiful brown. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and put that here. I'm going to let it kind of draw out. Some water, blend it. You can also take a paper towel and give it a little dab if you need to kind of blend it up. And then I'm going to take this and I'm going to make even darker. I need to refill my pans. Raw umber and permanent blue violet, and I've got a nice, and I'm just going to go along this side because this popsicle stick, just giving it some dimension. A little bit without going too far up the side. Okay, and we are pretty much done. That's it. So this was a pretty easy tutorial. I think it was pretty beginner friendly. Let me know in the comments what you think. If you thought it was fun, you could try a whole row of these if you wanted to. You could do them not melted, which would also be a great picture. They're so easy because they're just rectangles and there's lots of splatter options. You could add a background if you wanted to. When I do something like this and I'm going to add a background for this, I usually pick something that would be a few slats over of the color wheel. So for this, I would probably do a yellow because we're sitting at this pink, like kind of jump over a little bit, or really soft teal would be super pretty with this. You know, so like here, if we're looking here, you can see the teal, a blue would be nice, a teal. I'm just gonna kind of bump over a few slats this way or a few slats this way. So an orange or a yellow would look good. I probably wouldn't pick something, well, you could do a complementary color and do a green, but I'd probably stick to either orangey yellow or sunshiny yellow, or like a soft blue teal. You could do purple too, but that might blend in. And if I were gonna do a background, I would just wash it out, you know, be careful not to touch where the popsicle is. But that adds an extra challenge because if you start bumping in, you got a lot of water control you need to do. Maybe we'll explore backgrounds in another one of our tutorials. All right, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to tomorrow's prompt. This again was July 7th and Melt. Tomorrow's prompt is tired. So we'll have something fun to do for that. Thanks so much for watching.